Good evening. I'm Renee Fleming, a proud Fulbright alumna to Germany. As artistic advisor to the Kennedy Center, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the Fulbright Program's 75th anniversary celebration. Tonight, the U.S. State Department has brought us together to celebrate the legacy of this unique international exchange program, a legacy formed by the stories and accomplishments of Fulbright's more than 400,000 alumni. They've started as students, scholars, teachers, artists, and professionals of every background, representing the diversity and excellence of the United States and of partner countries. They have gone on to achieve distinction in their fields, transforming their communities and the world. Together, they have fostered greater understanding between the people of the United States and more than 160 countries. I'm deeply grateful for my Fulbright experience. My year in Frankfurt, Germany transformed me. There was the challenge of studying in a foreign language, which is, in its own way, a musical undertaking. I worked to absorb the culture and history of the country, crucial for me as a classical singer. And Germany is really the wellspring of art song, and I had the chance to work with some of the world's greatest coaches. And it was there that I discovered Richard Strauss, whose music would become so central to my career. Above all, Fulbright changed me as a person. A shy girl from upstate New York who had barely traveled anywhere, I crossed an ocean for a year of study in a foreign country. On the plane, from fear, I cried so much, the woman next to me asked, "Do you really want to do this?" And between sobs, I answered, "Yes, of course." And decades later, I was awarded Germany's highest honor, the Federal Cross of Merit. Thank you. So powerful was this journey for me that I truly wish that every young person could study abroad. And now, whether performing, I know, or working at the intersection of arts, health, and neuroscience, I know that the Fulbright experience is a part of who I am, as it surely is for thousands of other grateful alumni. And beyond our individual studies, we gained empathy and the spirit of collaboration, becoming global citizens. It is this kind of inspiration that we'll need to address the world's most intractable problems. And now, to begin tonight's celebration, I am honored to introduce a leader who has demonstrated excellence in his field and who is using his newest role to further the causes of justice, equality, and human rights. The second gentleman of the United States, Mr. Douglas Emhoff. Mr. Emhoff served as a prominent entertainment lawyer for nearly 30 years. As second gentleman, he is a symbol of the growing diversity of American leadership, redefining the role as the first male spouse and the first Jewish person in the presidential and vice presidential couples. Remarkably, as second gentleman, Mr. Emhoff has also returned to higher learning as a professor, guiding students who are seeking opportunity through education. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Douglas Emhoff.
Good evening, and happy 75th anniversary to the Fulbright program. As we honor this milestone moment for our nation's largest and most influential educational exchange program, I also bring heartfelt congratulations from the President, the First Lady, and the Vice President, my wife, Kamala Harris. The Fulbright program is a centerpiece of U.S. public diplomacy. Its premise is quite simple. Through education, individuals can be empowered to do extraordinary things. And through international exchanges, we can build a foundation for peace. This concept is as valid today as it was 75 years ago. I'd like to take a moment to thank and recognize a few key supporters of the Fulbright program. Secretary Blinken, an advocate of people-to-people diplomacy who meets with Fulbrighters whenever he can during his travels. New Assistant Secretary of State for Education and Cultural Affairs, Lee Satterfield, who has done so much for international exchanges throughout her career. Thank you to the presidentially appointed Fulbright Foreign Scholarship Board for your critical role in oversights and outreach. And I'd like to recognize the champions of Fulbright in both the Senate and the House, without whom this program would not be possible. Thank you. The journey of a Fulbrighter is one that lasts a lifetime. As you'll see tonight, Fulbright alumni are making an incredible difference across the world today. They are working to promote greater equity, justice, and human rights. So much of what today's Fulbright stands for reflects the priorities of the Biden-Harris administration, including its commitment to diversity and inclusion. Tonight, we are celebrating the achievements of gifted Fulbrighters from the United States and other countries. Alumni like Ruth Simmons, who grew up as a child of sharecroppers in segregated Texas, went on to lead the largest women's university in the United States, became the first African American to lead an Ivy League university, and now heads a historically Black university. And Rana Dajani from Jordan, a renowned biochemist, literacy advocate, and human rights defender who is working to raise the health, educational, and social status of women and children in more than 60 countries. Many Fulbright alumni have won prestigious Nobel Prizes, Pulitzers, and MacArthur's, among other awards. But tonight, we also want to celebrate the hundreds of thousands of Fulbright alumni who may not be household names, but their efforts are creating important, positive changes at home and around the world. They show that working together across borders and cultures is the right way to solve problems and build a better future. One of my favorite parts of being second gentleman has been engaging with and learning from people who come from different backgrounds. I was recently in France with the Vice President. While there, I had an opportunity to discuss exchanges that focused on increasing gender equity and civic engagement. I visited a French school that prepares people for good jobs in the food services industry. One of the individuals I met was a Fulbright alumna who now runs an organization that helps refugees, women, unemployed youth, working across communities and cultures. These powerful interactions reminded me of the importance of education and the benefits of building relationships beyond our borders. The Fulbright program works with more than 2,000 schools, colleges, and universities in the United States and thousands more in partner countries. Fulbrighters return from studying, teaching, and living abroad motivated and prepared to become more active citizens in their home countries and of the world. The impact of an international exchange lasts a lifetime. This is the power of the Fulbright. And so, it is my distinct honor to congratulate the Fulbright program on its 75th anniversary. I know this program will continue to transform lives and communities across the globe and to help create a more peaceful, prosperous, just, and equitable world. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jonathan Rabb, a Fulbright alumnus to Germany. To everyone here at the Kennedy Center and everyone watching from home, thank you for joining us for Fulbright's 75th anniversary celebration. To the members of Congress, ambassadors, and White House staff, we are especially grateful to have you here. On behalf of the Fulbright program, I want to thank Mr. Emhoff. We are thrilled and honored that the second gentleman of the United States agreed to be a part of this very special night. And we thank world-renowned artist Renee Fleming for opening this evening's programming and for sharing her wonderful Fulbright story. Every year, 8,000 individuals from the US and around the world receive Fulbright Awards, chosen for their merit and academic accomplishments, and representing the full diversity of the United States and countries around the world. Fulbright is distinguished among educational exchanges for its commitment to binational partnership. More than 160 countries participate in the program. 49 host independent binational Fulbright commissions supported by the US and other governments. These international partnerships reflect the values of Fulbright has nurtured in generations of leaders, including the capacity to think globally and a passion and commitment for working across borders. Fulbright alumni have made history. They have risen to the top of their fields, achieved the highest honors, and built sterling legacies. Among the alumni are 61 Nobel Prize recipients, 75 MacArthur Foundation Fellows, 89 Pulitzer Prize winners, and 40 current and former heads of state and government. Even more important are the advancements they represent. A world better understood and made more sustainable through scientific discovery, minds broadened through artistic expression, societies informed through courageous journalism, economies strengthened through enlightened policies, and peace preserved through skillful diplomacy. And tonight, as we commemorate Fulbright's successes over the past 75 years, we are at the same time celebrating Fulbright's achievements still to come, because the Fulbright program is an investment in our collective future. During my own Fulbright exchange, I was surrounded by new perspectives and brilliant minds. They helped me conceive a media project called Watch the Yard to fill the gap in the representation of Black fraternities and sororities online. Since its founding, Watch the Yard has grown into a media company dedicated to telling the stories, preserving the legacies, and growing the community around Black college culture. Earlier this year, we were proud to be named an official streaming partner of the 2021 U.S. presidential inauguration. Fulbright has long valued journalism as a powerful means of cultural exchange. Journalists take audiences to events and places they might not otherwise go. They translate languages, traditions, histories, and values so that individuals and communities of the world may better understand each other. Thanks to their professionalism, integrity, bravery, journalists replace the myths and assumptions with facts and help bridge divides that separate us. Journalism is also essential to democracy. In digital as well as print and broadcast media, Fulbright's journalist alumni have served the causes of freedom and justice. This year, the work of 3 such alumni was recognized with some of the highest honors. Fulbright is extremely proud that alumna Maria Ressa was awarded the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize for her intrepid journalism. Megha Rajagopalan received the Pulitzer Prize for international reporting. And Daniel Alicorn was named a MacArthur Fellow for writing and radio production. These Fulbrighters continue a legacy of alumni who have been leaders and pioneers in the field. Among them are international reporters who spent years traveling the world, crossing borders and cultures to uncover the global community's most important untold stories. They are trusted editors and columnists who have carefully curated the most insightful perspectives on domestic and world affairs and broadened our thinking with their informed opinions. Fulbright alumni have led media organizations that are home to some of the world's most respected journalism, and they have invested in the future by training rising generations in their profession. Journalists around the world have been shaped by their Fulbright experiences. They are principled, curious, open-minded, courageous, and committed to the truth. Throughout this evening's program, we will hear more alumni stories highlighting the Fulbright program's impact in 5 important areas: the environment, science, technology, and public health, education, public services, and the arts. We are honored to have the 71st U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, share a message with us later this evening, and by the participation of the Assistant Secretary of State for Educational and Cultural Affairs, Lee Satterfield. We will also have a special message from the illustrious Fulbright alumna, Dr. Ruth Simmons, the first African-American president of an Ivy League university. And then we will feel the joy and emotion of artistic performances from Fulbrighters, the gifted trumpet player Sam Nestor, and the remarkable Alito Alessi and his danceability performers. Now, we're excited to share Fulbright's achievements with all of you through the voices of our alumni. Let's begin by taking a look at Fulbright's contributions to the environment.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Andrea Dutton, a U.S. Fulbright scholar to New Zealand. Through Fulbright, I set out to pair my knowledge of sea level changes with local research on the Antarctic ice sheet. Though my goals were scientific, my experience left me with a profound appreciation of the Maori, the indigenous people of Aotearoa, the name of New Zealand in their native tongue. Our cultural exchange left me and my children with newfound respect for humanity and the relationship between humans and the natural environment. Working in this field, you realize that there is no greater unifier of humankind than the natural world. The environment is not bound by borders, languages, or culture. The consequences of environmental destruction threaten some communities more than others, but nature is not static. A challenge in one region will soon affect us all. That is why Fulbright alumni are addressing environmental issues at the local, national, and international levels. And through their efforts, they are encouraging every citizen of the world to do their part to protect our precious and irreplaceable natural world.
The state of the environment is changing at a pace that is alarming to us as humans because we see something that we love becoming something else.
The state of the environment today is an incredibly complex mixture of both very depressing things and very hopeful things. And I think as a conservationist, it's important to keep both of those extremes in mind and try to navigate a way down the middle.
The aim of my Fulbright was to bridge the gap between the local communities and the research institutions. A lot of the researchers there were trying to figure out how to reduce marine plastics in the region. What I learned at the Fulbright is understanding what the priorities and needs are of the people and how that feeds into conservation efforts. I think that the work has made an impact to community members and perceptions, and I know that there are some groups that developed out of this that are still active today.
I come from Utkalavik, or Barrow, Alaska. It's the northernmost community in the United States. I proposed to go to Iceland to really understand if there were any commonalities or what we could learn about food security, working as a part of the North Slope Borough Department of Wildlife Management, where we are here on the ground monitoring and assessing the environments and the species in the Arctic, whether that's going and measuring the bowhead whale to make sure that it's a healthy animal, or counting caribou to make sure that they are sustainable. When your people have been excluded from hunting the bowhead whale or hunting ducks, and that has always been your tradition for millennia, and you're in a position where you have to ensure that you have, whether it's the scientific information or being able to work with the managers, it makes it even more passionate to work in this role for my people.
I'm responsible for nature conservation in Iceland, pollution prevention, nature hazards. There are many issues that are the responsibility of an environment minister. So the biggest indicators of climate change in Iceland is probably the receding glaciers. Glaciers are melting. So Iceland has the goal of becoming carbon neutral in 2040. It is an ambitious goal. I really feel that we are at a moment in human history where we need all people who are willing to divert from something that could be catastrophic for the planet, that is climate change.
The project that I was working on was to survey some of the mammals that live in the canopy of the rainforest. The places that I picked have some of the highest canopy biodiversity in the world. It just provided a really nice entry point to introduce people to species and forests and environments that people don't necessarily think about a lot. In my current role, I work for a science communication organization where we help scientists tell their own stories and we create videos that highlight stories about science. The experience that I had on my Fulbright really kicked off the work that I ended up transitioning into as I moved away from research and into science media and science communication.
I did most of my career with the National Park Service. I started in Yellowstone National Park. So it's so important for us to have everyone feel that the parks are theirs and that they are connected to those parks and they want to preserve, protect, and love those parks. Bringing that connection for people to understand or to see with their own eyes is so important for them to understand why parks are so important to us all. We think about citizen science as a way to create stewardship. People protect what they understand. If you can take a picture of something and you can connect to that something and understand its story and its place, you're more likely to protect it.
As a sketch biologist, I go outside and sketch living things, both to learn about them and to illustrate stories, multimedia stories that I write involving biodiversity and ecology and conservation. And I do that to help other people become connected to nature in a way that I feel connected to nature, and to help motivate people to protect the ecosystems and species of the world that are so valuable and so threatened and irreplaceable and really need to be protected. Being a Fulbrighter was an extension of that feeling, where it was another opportunity to participate in conservation projects on opposite sides of the world and just get a sense of how they all fit together, how big the problems are, and how we're all working towards solutions. And there's a hopefulness in that.
I think it's really important that citizens, individuals all around the globe participate in fighting climate change.
Amplifying our voices is one way of being able to affect change at a larger level as well. So even though it seems really difficult as an individual, I think it's really critical that people come together in order to really push for that change.
Good evening. I am Sam Nestor, a Fulbright alumnus from Australia to the United States. The Fulbright program provided me the opportunity to learn from some of the most accomplished trumpet players and musical minds in New York City. The experience accelerated my development as a musician and set me on a path of performing for audiences around the world. As I began my Fulbright, I knew that this period of musical study would change my life. What I did not expect, though, was that I would be equally shaped by another benefit of my exchange: my exposure to broad thinkers in other fields. Until my move to New York, I had lived a somewhat cloistered life, focused on music history, music theory, and performance. Through Fulbright, my mind was opened to an expansive world of research, public service, and discovery. My relationships with other scholars connected me to deeper, larger humanitarian ideas. The experience stretched my thinking about how I could use my passion for the trumpet to make an impact beyond the world of music. Since my time with Fulbright, I've explored how music can change the way we interact with the natural environment. I've designed sound and light installations that respond to the biorhythms of plants, giving us a way to listen to, visualize, and interact with the natural world around us. In my project, Back of Beyond, which I conceived during my Fulbright studies, I recorded oral histories of people living in remote communities, from deep in the Australian outback to 320 miles north of the Arctic Circle in the northernmost communities of the USA. I then paired these oral histories with music and video to create an audio-visual project revealing lessons about climate change, Indigenous rights, and existence across physical and psychological distances. The performance I prepared for this evening combines elements of both projects. I developed it during a month-long residency on Bruny Island, Australia, so it is appropriately titled Bruny. My trumpet playing will join the sounds of bells, crotales, biodata recordings from native plants on the island, nature field recordings, and the oral history of an Indigenous artist, a long-time resident of the island. As he discusses the internal difficulties he faced leaving the comfort of the island to study at university, you will see footage of Bruny's natural environment. My goal for the project is to impart messages about perspective, privilege, and place.
When I left Brunei to go to university, to break and push myself through that uncomfortable place you didn't want to be at. You have to get through your comfort zone and push through that. I found it very uncomfortable to be in the city and university and in a way being controlled, in a way. That I have got to that stage where you can go that deep in your head that you think the world's going to come to an end. I have been there in thinking that the world is going to come to an end. And you can lock yourself in the world on Brunei and just let that part of the world go. We're not very well educated because we did a lot of travelling. We didn't know what school was about. We didn't really want to know what school was about, so we just travelled. But you'll find that most people who haven't got a high education are multi-tool because that's the way they converse. Before I was 21, I'd done fishing boats, I'd done foundry work, I've been in milling wheat, brick builder, carpenter, fisherman. It's the freedom.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sarah Staten, a U.S. Fulbright alumna who conducted chemistry research in Ecuador to develop a low-tech, non-invasive way to monitor the health of the environment. My Fulbright experience shaped the path of my life because it taught me to think about science in global terms. I saw the need for diplomacy between nations and recognized the value of science in fostering communication. That led me to explore the intersection of international cooperation in scientific studies, which I now pursue as the Deputy Director of the Office of Science and Technology Cooperation at the U.S. Department of State. For 75 years, Fulbright alumni, including many Nobel Prize recipients, have fostered discovery and progress through science by exploring the expanse of the universe and studying the parts of the world only visible through a lens of a microscope. Fulbrighters are distinguished biologists, chemists, engineers, physicists, and computer scientists. They are chief engineers and chief technology officers for global corporations, inventors, and patent holders. They have led innovations by creating affordable robotic arms for children with limb differences and changed the way that we treat diabetes, as well as advanced research in infertility, antibiotic dose, and virus screenings. One U.S. Fulbrighter was the first scientist to travel to space and is distinguished by being only one of 12 people to set foot on the moon. Every day, we see the impact of our alumni in scientific collaboration and progress. And at this challenging time for our global community, we especially celebrate how their work in public health has advanced knowledge, saved and improved lives, and given us the hope and optimism for the future.
Global collaboration is really very important for advancement of humanity. Evidence is everywhere to how much we can achieve as a human community if we all work together.
You know, this pandemic was one great example of where science could band together, but because science is a common language that the world speaks over, it's actually a great conduit for the Fulbright program.
I'm the chief investigator of a platform UK-wide clinical trial that's actually the world's first clinical trial looking to see if we can find interventions to improve the long-term outcomes of patients with COVID-19. The importance of communication and public engagement is something that was really emphasised during Fulbright, and I think the skills that I developed as part of the Fulbright programme have helped me no end during the pandemic with that.
So upon returning to the US from the Fulbright program, we created the first US Pasteur Institute as part of the international network. It induced a collaboration that has gone on for years. The strength of this program was truly exemplified by the most recent COVID-19 pandemic, where international collaboration and shared knowledge just really propelled everybody's research program and allowed everybody to move and make progress at a speed that was unparalleled to anything that had happened before. The international community, brought together by both Fulbright and as a community at large, was essential to develop vaccines and understand therapeutic interventions to help save lives for the onslaught of COVID-19.
Returning from the Fulbright in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis, I found myself wanting to use the skills that I developed during my Fulbright to contribute to the efforts to respond to the pandemic. I found an opportunity to work in a laboratory in Los Angeles that started off processing about 10% of the COVID-19 tests for the state of California. Fulbright has taught me how to develop meaningful collaborations, and I think that that is so important, especially in science.
President Sirleaf asked me to serve initially as head of the Ebola task force. When the Ebola broke out, there was really no experience in country. The death toll was rising. But then eventually, the international community started to rally around the country. The president established an incident management system, and then, given my logistics background, I continued to provide, to work as the logistics and essentially operational head of the entire response. Liberia has had a very recent turbulent past. Now we're working with the government to support and strengthen the delivery of mental health services in the country.
The Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to MSF. I was president when it was awarded, and I accepted the prize on behalf of the organization. And it was awarded really in recognition of its many, many years of humanitarian service to people in need around the world. The majority of people in the world actually have virtually no access to any form of formal health care. And the majority of people in the world really do suffer enormously as a consequence of a lack of access. In keeping with the spirit of the Fulbright, I encourage collaboration, I encourage working across borders, and I very much believe that by working together around common problems, that we can achieve really, really important results.
I went to Lima, Peru. I have loved being a part of that university, especially the fact that they have such a dire need to produce nurses, and those nurses can go in the community and can impact healthcare. We have sustained a relationship. I implemented a program here at UA at the Capstone College of Nursing, looking at Latino associate degree nurses, getting them into the BSN program, and encouraging them to continue their education.
I lost my vision from a young age. I was around 4 years old. I remember my dad bought one of those computers, and I started playing around with it as well, and that's when I think my love for programming developed. And I have been working for Google since 2012. We're trying to implement technology that would enable software to read out the screen for websites. We have to be very sensitive of internationalization. So how do these people experience the internet? How do they, through which software, people who are blind, let's say, or partially sighted, or hard of hearing, or with motor disabilities, or with cognitive disabilities, how can we improve their lives by giving them better access to the internet? I work on things that are meaningful, and they change the lives of people that I have in my everyday life around me. So other people with disabilities that I know, they benefit.
The mission of Fulbright to have international connectedness and collaboration and understanding could not be more important than here now in 2021.
Fulbright stands for Excellence in Education. For 75 years, the Fulbright program has elevated education as a means to break down barriers, support the exchange of ideas, create opportunity, and spark critical thinking around complex global issues. Many Fulbrighters lecture and teach, as well as carry out study and research during their programs. From ministers of education, to university presidents, to leaders of NGOs, and through tireless efforts of dedicated faculty and teachers, Fulbright alumni have increased access to education, developed innovative teaching methods and curricula, and raised the standards of education at the institutional, national, and international levels. Wherever they are and throughout their lives, Fulbrighters value learning and hold up education as essential to solving our toughest problems and creating common understanding.
Education is the cornerstone of how we advance as a society.
A quality education has a tremendous amount of impact on the individual as well as the community in which that individual lives.
The reason why I decided to do this particular Fulbright is I was really frustrated and distraught by these racial inequities I noticed in my school district. I went to New Zealand because I was really inspired by the ways in which they were supporting their Indigenous Māori students. They were supporting Māori as Māori, to be able to be their true authentic selves, to be able to bring in their cultural traditions and norms, and have that be a priority within classrooms. I came back ready and capable to make change. I came up with my own racial equity coaching model, which I did in Chicago public schools. The Fulbright really let me see that I had a mission beyond just myself, that I had a whole community that needed me to be standing strong to make change.
What I realized is that although I'm a scientist and I work in my lab and I'm an educator and I teach in the classroom, that we have a responsibility with the skills and the knowledge we have that goes beyond. Young women need role models to look up to, who they can learn from, and especially people who have not had to sacrifice being a mother, having a family, and also being a scientist at the same time. So hopefully through the Fulbright program, I have been able to inspire a lot of young women to pursue their dreams. To me, literacy and science are interconnected. Wheel of Reading is changing mindsets through reading to create change makers. We train youth, women, and men how to read aloud as an art in their local language. The program has spread to 63 countries around the world.
I had the honor to be Minister of Education of Peru for more than 3 years. There's a lot of inequality in terms of the education opportunities within the country. So we passed a law that created a completely new system of quality assurance and created a new superintendency of higher education, which was an extremely complex political endeavor, but it was absolutely critical. I am really fortunate of being a global director for education at the World Bank. We have many, many children who even are in school, both in low and middle income countries, who cannot read and understand a simple text by age 10, which is what we call learning poverty. Learning is really not happening in many countries, and that's the key challenge. It's about working with governments to improve the quality of systems as a whole.
When I stepped down as president of Wheaton College after 10 years in 2014, I made it very clear at the time that I did not intend to do another presidency. But when I was approached about the University of Richmond, I was intrigued. The university had become, in a very brief period of time, tremendously more economically and racially diverse. My highest goal when I first came here was to use the rich diversity to change the culture of the community, to ensure that every student, regardless of their background, their race, their ethnicity, their gender, that every student could thrive here. Every student felt as though they belonged here. There's no better way to ensure that you can make a contribution to changing that culture than through education.
We went to India with a group of administrators, and we met with our counterparts at Indian institutions in different cities with different responsibilities in order to understand the nature of the Indian educational system. I really think my Fulbright experience has informed my presidency tremendously. I think it makes me better at this position, better on behalf of the University of Minnesota, which of course is a global high-impact institution, because I'm so much more aware of how different things can be and how beautiful those differences can be and how important it is to really appreciate those differences in the decisions we make and the strategies we implement.
When I came home from my Fulbright, I just felt on fire. I felt inspired, and so I started to seek out other opportunities, and one of those opportunities was with National Geographic Education. I had the opportunity to spend 10 days out in New Mexico wilderness, and we really framed our entire humanities curriculum around outdoor spaces around the concepts of preservation and conservation. This was significant, and this was, I think, really born out of my Fulbright experience as well, because I was working with primarily students who were immigrant children. People of color often don't have the same opportunities to experience outdoors or experience wilderness spaces in ways that perhaps other demographics are. It was the absolute kind of experiential teaching and learning that teachers dream about.
I see the role of Fulbright in future education, keeping those opportunities and those channels open for exchange between different cultures, different religions, different contexts, different disciplines, so that we can learn from each other.
Fulbright is innovative in thinking about the future of education because it allows people to do the important learning, the work, the research, to be able to make change.
Our next speaker tonight is an extraordinarily thoughtful and erudite Fulbright alumna who has blazed trails for women, African Americans, and all scholars throughout her distinguished career as an academic and as a leader. Dr. Ruth Simmons entered the world of higher education as a student at Dillard University, a historically black university. After graduation, she traveled to Lyon, France, on a Fulbright to study French language and culture. She later earned her PhD in Romance languages and literature from Harvard University and went on to hold faculty and administrative positions at institutions including the University of Southern California, Princeton University, and Spelman College. In 1995, Dr. Simmons was named the president of Smith College, one of America's largest and most prominent women's colleges. While in that role, she created the first women's college engineering program in the United States. Then in 2001, Dr. Simmons was appointed the first African-American president of an Ivy League institution, Brown University, and earned the accolade America's Best College President from Time magazine. She currently serves as the president of Prairie View A&M University. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Ruth Simmons.
Good evening, one and all. It is a distinct honor and great pleasure to be part of the Fulbright Program's 75th anniversary celebration. What a singular contribution Fulbright and Fulbrighters have made to the world, and what a lasting legacy both continue to build today. From its inception, Fulbright has served as an effective humanizing venture in international affairs. Its design is ostensibly simple in concept, yet it greatly outperforms its simple design with outcomes that deliver a huge impact on lives. Born of the post-war idea that reaching across borders and cultures to gain a better understanding of others can stave off conflict, the program continues to demonstrate the strength and relevance of that founding ideal. It is my pleasure to join with the many program alumni here tonight and to share how Fulbright changed my life and shaped my career. To help you understand the impact of Fulbright on my life, I must tell you about my journey from a large sharecropping plantation in East Texas. Fortunately, my family managed to move to Houston when I was 7 years old, and I was able to avoid the worst of the child labor that typified the sharecropping system of the 40s and 50s. Being able to attend school every day was a blessing for me and my siblings, and we tried to take advantage of programs afforded us in our segregated, underfunded schools. Outstanding and caring teachers helped us understand that there could one day be a life beyond limited opportunities under segregation. This seemed odd to us at the time because strict segregation left no room for us to venture outside of our all-Black community. Although our teachers challenged us to work hard and to go on to college, they knew that the colleges that were just opening up to blacks might be hostile to us. And so they sent me off to a black college in Louisiana, Dillard University. At Dillard, 2 language instructors inspired me to look even further, not just beyond my segregated neighborhood, but beyond the borders of my country. They seemed eminently sensible to me, as I knew that my country, in a sense, regarded the notion that I was worthy of high achievement and rejected that notion. And I welcomed the possibility that somewhere in the world others might think differently. So I embraced the opportunity to study abroad and to learn how others might see me and how I might see them. So when I set sail in 1967 on the paquebot France to my Fulbright year at the University of Lyon, I was beginning my first extensive immersive experience. During my year in France, my knowledge of French language and culture grew, and my acceptance by others became an expectation that I had never before experienced. From long conversations about art, politics, and culture, to camping trips around Europe, I was no longer singled out as someone to shun. I was just another ami. I can't tell you what that did for my self-confidence and my thinking about what my country needed. This new world that I was experiencing was one in which I wanted to be a committed participant, sharing ideas, contesting misconceptions, opening doors for others to see what is possible when mutual regard replaces denigration and distrust. My Fulbright experience led me to return to the United States, complete my PhD, and begin an academic career where I could influence students to embrace learning about difference. The impact of leaving the narrow world that imprisoned my mind and my spirit was decisive in my life. Fulbright facilitated my ability to learn who I might be in a broader post-segregated world. Learning about my youth, my students have often asked me why I am not angry. I'm not angry because I see the possibilities. And what that sight always does for me is to lead me to hope for a better day. I have remained hopeful ever since my Fulbright year because I've seen more of the diversity that the world offers. Because of Fulbright, I did not lapse into defensive hatred and suspicion on the basis of racial and cultural differences. My openness to others and belief in possibilities led directly to my ability to lead very different kinds of institutions: an all-women's college, an Ivy League university, and now a historically black university. Fulbright made my roles at these schools possible because the program taught me to be comfortable with difference. And when one is comfortable with difference, one is indifferent to superficial elements, showing one how to see the value in every person. I have found value in vastly different types of individuals, and my life has been richer as a consequence. The possibilities shown me by the Fulbright experience encouraged me to fight for more equitable conditions in our country, improving the role and inclusion of women and minorities wherever possible. As an educator and administrator, I also set out to share the gift of international education and experience with my students, especially those who are first-generation students with limited interaction with different groups. I advocate for diversity in the award of international fellowships because I know what international study meant for me, both personally and professionally. International study is a much-needed element of a well-rounded education for anyone, but especially for the underserved. I've always seen international education as a close cousin of diversity and inclusion efforts. They are actually two sides of the same coin. requiring the same commitment to reach across differences and identify common purpose. I've used that perspective to instill in the culture of my campuses the idea that while it may seem more comfortable to be surrounded by clones of oneself, such a choice tends to be more reinforcing than challenging, stifling learning rather than stoking growth and creativity. In so very many ways, I'm the person that Fulbright made me, a continuous learner and striver, an avid proselytizer for international education, an advocate of the broadest possible learning experiences, and a believer in the power of human understanding. Fulbright lifted me out of a narrow world where little seemed possible, made me lift my eyes to the horizon, and enabled me to embrace what might be possible if only I reached out. I am grateful for the Fulbright experience, and I applaud all those from the past and in the present who are committed to keeping it strong. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hamad Hamad, a Fulbright alumnus. I studied conflict resolution in the Netherlands in 2008. My Fulbright experience prepared me to pursue a career in public service and diplomacy, one within which I continue to work across borders. The Fulbright program inspired me, a gay Palestinian-American immigrant, to see myself as a representative of the diversity of America abroad. After my Fulbright, I joined the United States Foreign Service and became an American diplomat, which empowered me to advocate for the rights of political prisoners in Venezuela, support the establishment of a Libyan unity government, and strengthen ties with our southern neighbor, Mexico. I now serve in the United States mission to the UN agencies in Rome, combating food insecurity around the world. The Fulbright program nurtures the idea that to lead is to serve. We believe that those who rise to positions of greater influence have a greater responsibility for improving the lives of others. Fulbright alumni are inspirational leaders in their communities, influential leaders in their nations, and diverse leaders of the world. Among them are a global network of diplomats, ambassadors, government officials, and heads of state. They also serve their communities by working in city and state governments and in the related fields of nonprofit advocacy and education, philanthropy, and civic activism. Enriched by their Fulbright experience, alumni serve diverse global communities with the firm conviction that every life has value and that every crossroad or obstacle is an opportunity for mutual understanding, a chance to move forward, stronger, together.
The goal of a public servant is to serve the public and to serve the greater good.
Public service is your opportunity to give back to a nation that's been there for you, to give back to the institutions that we uphold and that we believe in.
I have received the award of a research scholar under the Fulbright program in 1954 as I pursued a career as a foreign service officer, applying what I did learn, particularly at the Fulbright in Australia. I think I was able to make a significant contribution over a number of years to American foreign policy.
I learned a lot about public service and the importance of it in the United States Air Force, and I continue to serve today. So I was able to learn a little bit about U.S.-Canada relations in the defense context. There were a lot of relationships that I built, particularly in Ottawa, because that's where the majority of your defense policymakers exist. The importance of the Department of Veterans Affairs and what I'm doing specifically, I would definitely point to first, diversity, equity, and inclusion, ensuring that any VA environment, any facility is inclusive of the veteran populations that we serve. And I have to figure out how to be dropped into a situation and get my bearings. Fulbright prepared me for that.
I did an English teaching assistantship in South Korea. We received grants from the embassy in Seoul to do more programs with North Korean defectors and connect them to mentors. I saw the difference that something like that can make in people's lives, and I was inspired to join the Foreign Service. Right now, I'm a vice consul in Argentina. The Fulbright program and its mission of mutual understanding applies to my current role because, in a way, that's what I do every day, and it's what enables me to understand other people, but for other people to also understand us.
My role is part of the senior leadership team and in managing the organization, as well as thinking about how we can use communications and storytelling to really amplify the messages of the people we're serving and to give their concerns the light of day. The Fulbright experience was a wonderful opportunity to learn more about cross-cultural communication, as well as teach me about the responsibility I hold when I tell other people's stories. I feel enormously privileged that the experience that I had there has really informed my future work, where I was telling the stories at global humanitarian organizations and now in my current role.
So I had the opportunity to travel to Iceland and work with the police department in Iceland in terms of building their cybersecurity program. The Fulbright program enriched me, my life, and my career by forging these partnerships with people all over the world. And it's allowed me to provide the students that I now teach a more global experience, a more global perspective on issues that we're all facing.
Say my experience with the Fulbright program personally opened multiple doors, and they set the stage for when I was working in a public service role. The moment that I served in the government was a pretty awful moment for the economy. I felt like absolutely, if there's ever gonna be a moment to try to serve the public, it'd be during that crisis. The Council of Economic Advisors in the United States is a long-standing, basically I describe it as it's the President of the United States' personal think tank. When I was the chair, I tried to always give the President the honest truth wherever it was needed.
Being able to experience such precious opportunities through the Fulbright program inspired me to become a politician. After completing the Fulbright program, I became a member of parliament in Japan, and since then, I have led competitive political campaigns for nearly 20 years. As a Fulbright scholar, I was able to learn firsthand what it takes for societies to achieve multicultural coexistence.
Hice mi doctorado en la Universidad de Virginia y todo eso pues evidentemente me enseñó muchas cosas que luego he utilizado a lo largo de mi vida de regreso a España y luego para mi vida política. Fui ministro de varios departamentos y de ahí pues vino luego lo que se convirtió en una carrera de la política internacional. Aparte de mi experiencia vital en unos años fundamentales de mi vida, está ligado a la beca Fulbright, que en cualquier caso en mi personalidad, en mi manera de ver el mundo, en tantas cosas, pues yo creo que el programa Fulbright es un programa extraordinario.
After the U.S. Senate's allies defeated fascism in World War II, the U.S. Congress recognized the need to avert future wars by fostering new generations of leaders with a commitment to international collaboration and understanding. The Congress created the Fulbright program in 1946, and its members have sustained that support for 75 years. Today, thanks to the United States Congress, Fulbright continues to develop future leaders representing the talent and diversity of 50 U.S. states and U.S. territories and of countries around the world. We are grateful that Senator Boozman and Representatives Espaillat, Hill, Larson, and Westerman are celebrating with us tonight. And we have a few messages from more of today's Fulbright champions in Congress. We thank them for their steadfast support.
One of the greatest strengths of our nation is how we encourage and support the exchange of ideas and knowledge, not just here at home, but with friends, allies, and even adversaries abroad. Programs like Fulbright, which we recognize tonight, not only make those exchanges possible, but they promote the kind of international dialogue that an increasingly polarized world so desperately needs, as we know.
I have made diversity and inclusion initiatives a top priority so that United States foreign policies reflect the unique makeup of the American people and more fully represents the United States to the world. I am so encouraged by the Fulbright program's increasing commitment to diversity and inclusion.
As chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Fulbright understood the immense value of culture exchanges to U.S. foreign policy. We can be proud of the positive force the Fulbright program represents through its impact on U.S. diplomacy and our desire to help build a better future for people around the world.
The Fulbright program began in 1946, the year after the end of World War II, a time when Americans clearly understood the importance of global engagement and diplomacy in protecting lasting peace. A lot has happened since then. 13 presidential administrations, the invention of the internet, a global pandemic, and through it all, Fulbright's commitment to fostering mutual understanding between the U.S. and the rest of the world has not wavered.
The key to the legislation was the idea, never before tested, that this lofty goal could be achieved not by negotiations among heads of state and foreign ministers, but by citizen ambassadors, exchange students and professionals, Americans and foreigners living, studying, and teaching in communities, making friends and connecting with future leaders.
All of us that have had the privilege to be a Fulbright scholar know what a wonderful personal experience it is to study abroad, make friends, future colleagues, and pursue important work. But it's an important diplomatic tool for our country as well. The relationships that are built between Fulbright scholars and members of their host countries are extraordinarily important in shaping the future of this country overseas, and frankly, important in shaping the image of the United States around the world.
The Fulbright program is really the crown jewel of public diplomacy initiatives. Thank you personally for the experience that I was able to have as a Fulbright scholar. As a lawmaker, as a public official, I want to thank you for what it means to have this program promoting dialogue, conversation, interaction among countries and individuals around the world.
As we continue to face new challenges across the globe, the Fulbright program remains a beacon of hope for a brighter future.
The return on investment in the Fulbright program, realized by the United States over the last 75 years, is incalculable.
So let us all continue to support and uplift this essential program that is helping to create the next generation of leaders.
The experience of a Fulbright exchange lasts a lifetime. So congratulations to the Fulbright program on 75 years of connecting the world.
Congratulations on 75 years. We look forward to a bright future for the program.
So congratulations, and here's to another 75 great years.
Congratulations on this incredible milestone. I guess I'll give you a toast, budget cuts, Senate water, but maybe you have something better. But here's to the next 75 years.
Our next video presentation takes us through the rich history of Fulbright alumni in the arts. For 75 years, the Fulbright program has recognized the power of the arts to help achieve its vision, and as a result, the accomplishments of alumni in this field have been prolific. As groundbreaking film directors, award-winning movie producers, legendary and accomplished playwrights, and celebrated actors, they have opened our minds to the stories and lives of others on stage and on screen. Throughout extraordinary works in the visual arts, they have moved us with beauty, exposed our values, attitudes, and beliefs, and stirred our thoughts and emotions. Their art has transported us through other times and other places, and they have transcended language to reveal who we are and how we see ourselves in the world. The influences of Fulbrighters also resound in music. Fulbright composers have created pioneering pieces that reflect underrepresented cultures and span musical genres. Orchestras, symphonies, and choruses have brought their works to life, and they have earned the highest honors. As musicians, they are masters of instruments and styles born of their heritage. As vocalists, dancers, and choreographers, they enthrall us with their performances, express their customs and traditions, and dazzle us by bringing their incredible visions to life. Through some of the most acclaimed poetry of the last 75 years, Fulbright alumni have artfully told the stories of people and places with compelling imagery. As writers, their essays are smart, satirical, and reflective commentaries on the issues of their time. Their novels have brought depth, vividness, and humanity to the lives and circumstances of communities, societies, and periods of history. Their works are recognized with the most prestigious honors and rightfully proclaimed classics, forever maintaining their relevance and influence in the literary world. The arts give voice to the most fundamental aspects of the human condition. They open us to ourselves and to the larger culture, and to other societies and other peoples as well. Perhaps it is this strong connection between artistic expression and international understanding, both of which are transformative endeavors, that has allowed the Fulbright program to contribute to the formation of such a magnificent collection of artists from around the world.
Art is essential to today's world. And of course, you might say, oh, yes, she would say that. She's a poet. You know, she's got to say that art is essential. But if you look around, you'll see that even with all of our communications and our vast technology and science today, the ways in which we understand how to move through the world is something that art teaches us.
Art is the greatest communicator because it's, it doesn't matter what religion you have, doesn't matter what you believe in, doesn't matter where you live, what language you speak. It's an instantly available sense of connection.
I think art is always having an influence on the world. Art is an essential part of being. It's going back to the beginning of time. It's about holding up a mirror to society. It's about giving us the space to rehearse our feelings and ourselves as emotional beings.
My Fulbright experience was absolutely essential to my training as a poet. Being that close to the language, trying to figure out how to move all those impulses and rhythms in German into English made me appreciate my language, my mother tongue, more. That meant that I began to understand how to put together an English sentence in a different way. I realized that up to that point, before I had this Fulbright, I saw the world only as the way America media wanted me to see it. I had never really considered the larger picture. So I came back with that kind of understanding, a greater appreciation for the ways in which all cultures can interconnect. I think that has played a big part in the way in which I approach teaching now and the way in which I approach my own work. Programs like Fulbright are important for the arts because they allow the human intellect to get creative and to imagine itself even larger. That is such a not only eye-opening experience, it's a soul-opening experience.
To me, the Fulbright had a big impact because I visited a country that I knew little about, Finland, and yet I created lifelong friendships. I learned so much about the beauty of Finland, not just the physical beauty of the country, but its history, its landscapes, its spectacular architecture, and of course, by being inspired by that experience of being in Finland. How lucky for me now that I'm building a gigantic project in Tampere, a beautiful city in Finland. You know, when I design a space, I always think you have to enter the spirit of a site, what represents the site in terms of people who occupied it, who was there, who were they, who are your real clients, not just the people you're dealing with now, but all those voices and all those people that still belong to the site.
I had my Fulbright. My Fulbright gave me Ireland. Ireland stayed in my mind all those years. And then finally, I wrote a novel called Thomas Murphy out of that experience. Fulbright is important for everything and certainly is indispensable in terms of the arts. The idea that you can travel someplace, even if your field is not in the arts, and experience the art, which is the heart of another country, is inimitable. So Fulbright said, we're going to take you and show you something else and believe that you will enlarge by seeing something else. You will become important to yourself and perhaps to others by seeing, by being something else. I always thought the whole Fulbright inspiration was wonderful, just wonderful.
My Fulbright experience absolutely transformed the way I thought about theater. That was sort of the point of my applying. I knew that there was a different way of making theater in Germany. I was very curious about their techniques, their dramaturgical sensibility. I saw things that I'll never forget. I began to think about theater in ways that I hope I never lose. I did an extraordinary amount of writing while I was on my Fulbright. In fact, I've told people that that was really where I think I was born as a writer. It was the first time in my life that I literally only had one task, which was to do the thing I wanted to do. And it was a very fulfilling time. I wrote the first drafts of 3 plays, which are now considered among my most successful. I really immersed myself in language and literature and writing and thinking about writing and reading about writing. And I count that among the most important times of my life, you know, my creative birth in some way.
Wow. Good evening. I'm Alito Alessi, the founder and creative director of Danceability International and a U.S. Fulbright alumnus to Mexico. When I was a young dance instructor, I realized that as much as my generation embraced the premise that dance was for everyone, there was no one truly fulfilling the idea of equity for all in dance. I thought of my mother who used a wheelchair and the other members of my family with disabilities. Their experiences inspired me to create a methodology rooted in the belief that everyone should have a way to experience the interpersonal connection and joy of dance. Over 20 years, I've developed a methodology that allows instructors to teach dance simultaneously to any group of people, regardless of differences in how they have developed, how they think, or how they experience the environment around them. Fulbright was the first national and international program to recognize the potential of danceability. I was fortunate to be selected by Fulbright to travel to Mexico City, where I worked with the university students and the local disability community to build dance skills and techniques. The experience and credibility of Fulbright transformed my dance program into a worldwide network with affiliations in more than 40 countries. Fulbright also led to my involvement with the State Department Arts Envoy program in Indonesia, the Philippines, and Mongolia, where I had one of my most impactful experiences with the program. In a sign of how important our work would be, our group had to carry those using wheelchairs up the steps into our studio. The participants initially resisted my instructions as an American. I adapted my teaching, and we discovered a mutual understanding. By the end of our trip, we had bonded. The dancers showed their appreciation by performing the national dance of Mongolia for us, some even wearing the clothing bearing the American flag. My time with Fulbright was a testament to the ability of the arts to transcend borders, languages, experiences, and abilities. Performing tonight on behalf of Danceability are Timothy Bruno Hibbler, Maria Alvarez Preto, and Karen Daly, who was part of our training in Mongolia. They will perform an excerpt from our original piece, We Carry On, to music by Cullen Vance. Thank you.
Good evening. As chair of the presidentially appointed Fulbright Foreign Scholarship Board, I'm honored to be here tonight to represent the hundreds of distinguished Americans who have served the board and to celebrate with you the program's profound impact on individuals in the world over the past 75 years. I'd like to thank my fellow board members, past and present, some of whom are here tonight, for their stewardship of the Fulbright program and commitment to public service. In particular, I want to recognize the board subcommittee and member Margaret Chai Maloney for dedicating so much of her time and talents to tonight's celebration. All of us feel a deep sense of privilege to be part of this bold endeavor. Fulbright provides unrivaled educational and cultural experiences. Its diverse and dynamic network shares knowledge across communities and borders and creates lasting connections to nurture a more peaceful world. My time as chair has coincided with the COVID-19 pandemic. Rather than close down operations, the dedicated staff around the world found creative ways to navigate the crisis and keep international exchanges going. In fact, the Fulbright program is stronger than ever. During the past 2 years, the board guided the expansion of Fulbright through 2 new partnerships with the National Park Service and the National Archives to develop scholarship related to cultural, historical, and environmental conservation. Every Fulbrighter is part of a legacy of excellence and leadership. Scientists, public servants, educators, and artists, as we've witnessed here tonight. I want to recognize and thank university leaders who are here in the audience and those joining virtually around the world for your essential role in the Fulbright program. I'm delighted to congratulate everyone in the Fulbright community, alumni, the U.S. Department of State and Department of Education, partner governments, implementing organizations, higher education, private sector sponsors, and board members past and present on 75 years of life-changing academic and people-to-people exchanges. May the Fulbright program's next 75 years be even more extraordinary.
Good evening, everyone. This has been a magnificent program. My name is Lee Satterfield, and as of a week ago today, I am the Assistant Secretary of State for Educational and Cultural Affairs. And I am delighted that this is one of my first official duties as Assistant Secretary to mark this incredible milestone of the Fulbright program. I have the honor of leading State Department's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs in its effort to increase mutual understanding between the people of the United States and the people of other countries. I had the privilege of serving in ECA during the Obama administration and have worked with Fulbright and other programs over the course of my career. Fulbright creates a community with shared values that solves global issues, as you've seen tonight. We're grateful to be celebrating Fulbright's 75th anniversary together at the Kennedy Center for Performing Arts, a hub for wonder, creativity, transformation, and possibility, fittingly all elements that Fulbrighters bring to the world. I want to thank Paul Winfrey for his leadership of the Fulbright Board, as well as 3 of my predecessors who are with us here tonight. My mentor, Ann Stock, Marie Royce, whose vision it was to celebrate the occasion at the Kennedy Center, and Evan Ryan, now the White House Cabinet Secretary. Who very well may be the strongest advocate for international exchanges we have ever seen at the White House. And of course, a special thanks to the many Fulbright alumni and partners who are with us both in person and virtually. And now it is my privilege to introduce the Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, who is traveling and will be joining us on video.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Fulbright program. Surely one of the most beloved U.S. government programs, enriching the lives of hundreds of thousands of people around the world and forging friendship and cooperation across cultures, borders, languages. When President Truman signed the act establishing the Fulbright program in 1946, it was less than a year after World War II had ended. The devastation of that war was still keenly felt. The losses were vast. There was an urgent need to create lasting conditions for peace, to build mutual understanding among nations, to foster goodwill among their people. The Fulbright program helped answer that need. It brings people together through educational and professional exchanges, giving them a chance to learn about other countries and cultures, collaborate on issues of global importance, and create connections that last a lifetime. In the 75 years since its inception, the Fulbright program has grown into our country's premier international exchange program. Its alumni include more than 400,000 people from 160 countries. They're students and recent graduates at the very start of their careers, as well as scientists, teachers, researchers, and artists with many years of experience. 40 Fulbright alumni have served as heads of state. Nearly 90 have won Pulitzer Prizes, and more than 60 have won Nobel Prizes, including Maria Ressa, a courageous journalist from the Philippines who won this year's Peace Prize. It's simply an extraordinary group of people who reflect all facets of our global diversity, and many would never have crossed paths if it weren't for Fulbright. As a diplomat, I love this program because it helps create the space for people to learn from each other and connect across cultural divides, which makes global cooperation possible. In 1963, the great Edward R. Murrow led the agency that oversaw the Fulbright program. He said then, "The real art in this business is not so much moving information or guidance or policy 5 or 10,000 miles. The real art is to move it the last 3 feet in face-to-face conversation." Well, that's still true today, even if those 3 feet have become 6 feet or more of social distance. The power of personal connection that this program makes possible is just as important as ever. The members of the Fulbright community are change makers. They care deeply about the problems facing our world today, from stopping COVID-19 to countering threats to democracy. And through Fulbright, they help strengthen our world, from classrooms, villages, universities, and cities across the globe. Maria Papanicoleo, a Greek Fulbright student who came to the United States in 2016, often heard this program opens doors. But she says that in her experience, and I quote, "Fulbright actually creates doors. It forges pathways where there only seem to be walls." I want to thank everyone who makes that possible, including the State Department and Congress, the Fulbright Foreign Scholarship Board, partner governments and the binational Fulbright commissions, and hosts and universities around the world. The Fulbright program today is strong, adaptable, and resilient because of the work that you're doing to create doors, break down walls, and cross those last 3 feet. Tonight is a testament to everything that the Fulbright program has accomplished these past 75 years. And I can't wait to see what this program will become in the years ahead. Thank you, Fulbright.
Thank you to Secretary Blinken for those remarks and for his long-standing personal commitment to Fulbright and all of the exchange programs in ECA. I want to also thank the Fulbright team, led by Mary Kirk and Steve Money. Also, Marianne Craven and David Plack, who oversee that office. They have dedicated their careers to academic exchange programs. Thank you also to our newly minted Deputy Assistant Secretary for Academic Programs, Ethan Rosenzweig, for his leadership. We have achieved so much in the last 75 years, and here's to many more life-changing years to come. To our guests here at the Kennedy Center, I look forward to seeing you at the reception immediately following. To the thousands of alumni and supporters who are joining us from across the world, we hope you have enjoyed this evening. Thank you and good night.